Welcome to The Code, your guide to health and human performance. I'm your host, Dr. Andrew Fix from Physio Room, a performance-based rehab facility here in Denver. On this podcast, we're going to explore the key areas of your life that impact your overall health and wellness, from sleep hygiene and stress management to nutrition, movement, relationships, and more. We bring you conversations with industry experts and top performers to share strategies they have for cracking the code on health and human performance. Now let's get to today's show. Welcome back to The Code, everybody. Dr. Andrew Fix here from Physio Room. On this episode today, we're going to be talking to my good friend, Tristan Mitchell. He and his wife, Haley, own and run a gym here in Denver called Lion's Den. Tristan is the lead coach here and opened this gym. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tristan. You guys opened Lion's Den 3 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago?
4 years and 4 years in March, man.
4 years in a month from now. So thank you for being on here and coming to the show, Tristan. I'm excited to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, to give you guys a little bit of a background, so Physio Room and Lion's Den have a great relationship. So we met a couple of years ago at a race in the community. Tristan met our owner, Chris. And for the past 2 years, we have been operating one of our offices here in Denver inside of their gym here inside of Lion's Den. So we're excited to talk to Tristan. You'll probably hear him on other episodes, but we're excited to have him on here. Will you share with the listeners a little bit about, your background and, what got you into the fitness industry to begin with? Like how did that happen?
Yeah, for sure. So take it way back to kind of high school years. I had my sophomore year of high school, I got a job working at a local furniture company and I was doing manual labor and realized very quickly that I needed to get stronger. I was working obviously part-time and working with a bunch of adults, dudes who were way stronger than I was, and realized that I needed to do something about it to try to close the gap. So how old did you say you were?
I was 16. 16 years old.
There's a million stories I can tell about that, but I won't. I'll try to. But it was a great experience for me, and I worked there for years. But anyway, so I got into started lifting some weights. It's kind of my first venture into any sort of formal exercise. I was incredibly fortunate to have a few guys at the local rec center that I was working out at that kind of took me under their wing. And I think they saw a pretty lost and confused, at that time I was 17-year-old in there, and they were about 10 years older than me, and they were like, "Hey, you want to jump in with us?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do, because you guys look like you know what you're doing." And these guys were awesome, so they were hugely influential on me, really helped me kind of get my feet underneath me in the gym. And I started weightlifting with them, strength training with them 4 days a week. Did that for years. I was delivering furniture part-time, so I was building kind of strength through that. And I was just I just kind of started to realize that I enjoyed physical exertion, right? Mm-hmm. Fast forward into high school, while I'm working out regularly and I'm reasonably strong, I'm not really happy with my body as a whole. And I weighed about 50 pounds more than I weigh right now. So I was about almost 220 pounds at my heaviest. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to do something about that. So I started running on the treadmill prior to our strength workouts with the guys that I was working out with. I would do a 10-minute mile on the treadmill for 15 minutes. Yeah. And I did that for, a series of weeks or months. And I remember one day getting on the scale at the rec center and I was 198 pounds. This is like the old weighted scale. So I legit was like, that can't be right. I stepped off the scale, made sure everything was
like a tip scale.
Yes. Yeah. Made sure everything was lined up properly and got back on. I was 198. And I was like, well, all right, there's something to this running. So I start running to the rec center that I'm working out at, home from the rec center after my lifts, and running starts to become more and more of an aspect of physical fitness that I enjoy. Mm-hmm. I end up running a 10K sometime later. And I remember whatever this equates to, I just remember that I ran a 6:59 pace and I got 10th place in the race. And I remember being like, this was fun. I competed, I pushed myself. And that kind of led to a half marathon, which eventually led to a marathon, and running kind of became, the driving force of my kind of physical pursuits. And that all kind of transpired between 18 and 20. So by this point, I'm at Metro State. I'm in college at this point, still working part-time, running and lifting. And so I'm just living a pretty physical life.
Sounds
and like I was a year into, after the first year that I was in school, I really was like, I originally went to school to be a history teacher. I kind of had an unmotivated freshman year, and I took a semester off. I worked full time, worked out a lot, realized, I always say, like, if you're ever wondering about whether or not you should continue the pursuit of a college career, go work manual labor full time for a little while. Because I was, I had done it for years at that point, part-time, but going from part-time to full-time is a whole different ballgame.
Oh, and I can't even imagine. I mean, the job that we have now, you being a trainer, myself being a physical therapist, there's some physical components to it, but you're not lifting shit and moving awkwardly shaped objects all day long, carrying it up and down stairs and all this stuff. So yeah, that would take a toll. And I was running, so I was running, I was training for marathons, I was still going to the gym. I mean, I was like all about this life, right? But but I was also 20 years old, or 19 or whatever at the time. So maybe that makes, there's a little bit of a difference. A lot of youth on your side.
Totally.
Well, I want you to continue. What, something that you said, what this kind of sounds like to me, and I still have a hard time picturing this in my head, because I've never known you at 220 pounds.
Yeah.
And you guys, Tristan actually just finished a workout here in the gym, and his biceps are popping out of his shirt a little bit. We had an upper body workout today. So it's hard for me to even picture that. But you said that you kind of, I don't know if latched onto a group of guys is the right term, but you saw some people who were doing something that you kind of wanted to do. And you were like, yeah, let me join up with these guys, because they're doing something that I want to get to that point.
Yeah. Well, I think they very much approached, like, they were awesome, because I think they saw me as a guy that was there consistently, but was probably pretty directionless in their eyes.
Yeah.
And so they actually came to me and were like, hey, you want to jump in with us?
That's awesome.
Which was super, super cool. So they kind of took me under their wing, and I was with them, I was really lifting with them from probably 17 to about 19, so about 2 years. By the time I really started getting into running, one of them had moved out of the state, another had kind of moved on from the rec center. So they were really there for about a year and a half in my life, 2 years, where they were really instrumental, and it was really cool. I mean, I think I'm a huge proponent of like mentorship in all aspects of life. I didn't think about this at the time as mentorship, but it really was in a lot of ways mentorship. They not only did they teach me how to lift and really kind of show me the ropes, but we'd go out for dinner afterwards. We'd hang out, we'd talk. So they were great guys, and that was really, really important for me, and something I think can be super valuable to people.
It sounds like, and I know a term that you use often here in the gym is, it sounds like you kind of found a tribe, and you'll probably touch on that a little bit later, but yeah, that is invaluable, having like a group of people that you just connect with and vibe with. And it sounds like you found them, they found you at the perfect time.
Totally. Well, and I think in a lot of ways, I think I have found that in various aspects of my life. And only in recent years do I really think about it in the terms that I think about it now. But, I had them early on, and a couple guys from the high school that I went to also, that I would lift with as well. And then when I started delivering furniture, there was very much a tribe there as well. And I think, I'm a huge, I think when you start doing stuff that is physically demanding with other people, it creates, a level of a bond, a shared suffering creates a bond that I think is hugely powerful. And I experienced that through my years of delivering furniture. And then obviously going through school, and to kind of sum up the end of that story, I ended up going back to school, kind of remotivated after that semester off, and got through school, realized that I wanted to get into the fitness space. I ended up changing kind of last minute. I went kind of a nutritional route, and I was in school for way longer than was necessary because I was constantly changing my mind, and ended up, long story short, ended up graduating with a degree in history and a minor in nutrition, which I remember at the time my advisor was just like, this is a very bizarre combination. Totally. But I realized if I wanted to scrap the history route altogether and just go full nutrition, I was starting all over, right? Which at that point I was like 20, I don't know, 3 or 4, I can't remember now, 23, I think, and was just like, I need to be done. You know, like I can't just keep staying here. So anyway, so then I get done with school. The furniture company that I was working for goes out of business, and I get a job over at a local athletic club. And that kind of started my path into this as a career. So then I started accumulating certifications necessary to become a personal trainer, and got my foot in the door there, got started at the gym that I was working at, a place called Greenwood Athletic Club. And that was a fantastic place for me to begin, because I was able to meet some amazing people, and was able to build some clientele and learn a lot. And probably about a year, maybe a little under, or no, not even actually, right in the beginning of like me officially being able to, to personal train or being a personal trainer, I had stumbled upon a podcast, Joe Rogan podcast with Kelly Starrett. And that kind of blew my mind essentially. And basically made me feel like I knew nothing, but highly motivated me to learn way more. So I picked up his book, and just really, for me, I entirely changed and reworked my approach to exercise and fitness in a lot of ways. Prior to that point, I think I was more, it was more just work hard. The harder you work, the better kind of thing. There wasn't a ton of like thought process. There wasn't as much thought process around my training. Definitely wasn't the thought process around movement quality, etc. So that opened the doors for a million things for me that ended up really being the basis. In so many ways, that became the basis of, of kind of who I am now, and that was, I don't know, 8 years ago now, 9 years ago almost, I think, so somewhere around there. And
for those of you who may not know who Kelly Starrett is, in the book that Tristan is referring to is titled Becoming a Supple Leopard. There's been a couple editions of that book now, but an awesome read, tons of valuable information in there, in a book that we reference basically daily in this office, with the way that that the trainers here, in the coaches in the gym, motivate and coach their clients, and then too at Physio Room, the way that we work with our clients. A lot of information comes out of that sort of manual, in a way, is what that book is. But so it sounds like that book was kind of like the motivating point, to like fueling your desire to, not just be average at, you had some certifications to become a trainer, but you wanted to continue to pursue becoming better every 100%. Single day at your craft.
100%. It motivated me to really think about this as, I think, I say this a lot. I think at some point, I think there's a lot of trainers that get into this job as a pursuit of passion, which I think is fantastic. And I think it's a great way to start, right? Especially in this job where you're working with people and, really needing to be able to, exhibit some energy throughout a day. Like, you've got to have some passion around this, I think, to do it, from a kind of mental, emotional standpoint, but also to ever make any money doing it. Right. So I think passion's a great place to start, but then I think every trainer is going to hit a fork in the road at some point where it's like, okay, is this like the way I'm going to make a living, or is this like something I'm going to do, in my early 20s, right?
On the side.
Or is this going to be like a side gig or a hobby or something like that? I think for me, I hit that fork, like when I, kind of listened to that podcast, found that book, it really, for me, was at a point where I was like, okay, is this like my path? Is this my career? And I had decided yes. And that for me was a lot of like, that book really kind of motivated me to think like, okay, from this point forward, I will continue tirelessly to try to hone the craft of at the time it was like personal training and fitness. Now it's, kind of expanded, to kind of a lot of more kind of whole life. And it's really, my interests have expanded over the years, and the things that I spend my time, reading about and learning about have expanded. But that was really kind of that fork in the road where it was like, okay, am I going to hone this career? Is this the craft that I want to continue to work on for the rest of my life? And I think the answer was a resounding yes.
Yeah.
And then I had a great handful of years working at the athletic club that I was at. And it's a fantastic place, but essentially I just didn't feel like the facility was allowing me to train the way that I wanted to train. The opportunity presented itself to kind of pursue, my own space. And that was a big kind of scary decision. And at the time brought tons of stress. But also tons of excitement, and I went for it, and now we're coming up on 4 years, and Lionsden has certainly had a up and down 4 years. I mean, we obviously opening a gym is an endeavor in and of itself, but then obviously this gym and so many others and so many other businesses have been impacted by the pandemic.
Right.
It made for some interesting times, but we're now coming up on 4 years. So that's awesome.
Well, yeah, we don't have to go down that big rabbit hole, but you're totally right about the time that I got in
rabbit hole.
About the time that I got introduced to you is, about the time the pandemic was starting. I think I met you 1 week prior when the pandemic started, when you were launching this new location.
Yes.
And then, pandemic starts, gym has to close. But I want to touch on something. So you said, and this question has nothing to do with Greenwood Athletic Club and everything to do with your mindset and like your motivation. But you said that part of the driving factor to ultimately opening up Lionsden is you were starting to feel like you were not able to work with your clients the way that you wanted to, or you believed that you should work with them. So without maybe going way in detail, what do you mean by that? Like what were you hoping to do that you weren't able to do that now you get the opportunity to do every day?
Yeah. I mean, I think mainly what I mean by that is that, from my perspective, my goal is to serve the people that I work with to the best possible degree that I feel like I can serve them. Right. So, so I need, for me, and obviously this, but our space is very kind of movement focused, and I need space and I need equipment that really allows for the kind of movement focused training that we work on here. And that just wasn't available to the degree that I needed it to be there to do the kind of things that I felt very much like I was in the way there.
Yeah.
I was, a little bit of a,
you were the outlier.
Yeah, a little bit of an outlier. Exactly. And so it just made for an environment that wasn't super conducive to being able to do the things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So like I said, once the opportunity presented itself, I realized that it was going to be either do this now or you're never going to do it. And so I did it.
Well, and part of the reason I wanted you to kind of expand on that just a little bit is because that's the same reason I'm in the position that I'm in. Because I started to feel that same way about the situation that I was in, and that's why I made a slight career shift. And I think a lot of people feel that way about the particular position or job or whatever that they find themselves in. Is they're like, man, I know I need to change something. I just don't quite know how to do it. And what you did was you decided to take the opportunity and the risk to bet on yourself. And you're like, I'm going to regret this if I don't at least give this a shot. And if it falls on its face, well, at least I don't regret not trying. And, I think we get the opportunity every day to work with business owners who are doing the same thing, betting on themselves and making a living for their family or whatever in something that they were passionate about and they started to do. So I just commend you for doing that, because I think a lot of people, for fear of failure, will not take that risk, and they'll just keep sticking it out and be unhappy in the situation that they're in. And well, at least in this room, 2 out of 2 people have found success taking the opportunity. So totally.
And I think just to touch on one thing that we talked about earlier, I think for me, one thing that was so valuable to doing this was that I had a group of mentors around me that really were there for me to help make this a possibility in a way that gave me the confidence to do it. Again, I think that's the power of having some mentors around you, people who are a little bit older, a little bit more successful and experienced, and have done things that you haven't done. And learning from them was massively beneficial. And then I also just had the dumb luck of now who I'm married to, but I had the dumb luck of at the time dating somebody who has now she's become, I always joke that she owns it and I work here kind of thing. But my wife, Haley, is like an instrumental part to this gym operating. And honestly, going into it, I didn't know what I was getting into. Like that's, like you don't know until you're there kind of thing. And I don't think her or myself necessarily envisioned the level of involvement that she has here. But without her, this wouldn't be a thing. And, and then I've had the fortune, I've had the great fortune of having great people, in here that have worked here over the years, some who are still here, others who were here for a period of time. So, I mean, I just think life is in so many ways about surrounding yourself with the right people. And it opens the doors for opportunity to feel a little bit more comfortable taking some risk. And so, anyway, so that's just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it takes a village, right, to do anything. It's hard to do things on your own. And there typically will come a point where if you're just only trying to do things on your own, you're going to hit a tipping point at some point where like there's a thing that you want to do that you probably can't do by yourself, So, and I probably did a poor job introducing the gym at the very beginning of this episode. But so 4 years ago, you decided to open a gym, or you made the decision prior to 4 years ago, but you opened the gym 4 years ago, Lion's Den, strength, mobility, and performance. And you started to touch on the type of movement and the type of training that you do with people here is, mobility and working through very functional activities and ranges of motion is very important to you guys. So how did you guys end up settling on the name Lion's Den? And, how would you describe the gym in terms of, the type of training and programming that clients and customers will experience here?
Yeah. So I'll tackle the name first. So there's kind of two-pronged here. One is, through my early 20s, I was obsessed with the movie Troy. Have you ever seen the movie Troy?
I have seen Troy.
Yeah. So Achilles, Brad Pitt, in that movie, when they are getting ready to launch they're getting, him and his ship are getting ready to invade the beach of Troy, right? And as he is getting the crew kind of amped up, he tells his unit there that he would rather fight alongside them than an army of thousands. And he says something to the effect of, "Let no man forget how menacing we are, for we are lions." And as an early 20-something-year-old seeing that movie, I'm an action movie nerd, and I'm a nerd in a lot of things. But anyway, I just loved that line, and it used to fire me up so much. And so when I would work out, or when I'd be like deep in like long tempo workouts or something, I would just recite that, right? Like, let no man forget how menacing you are, for you are a lion. And so I had kind of grown this like, minor obsession with lions in general. So that had always kind of been in my head. And so I had always kind of had this idea that if I ever opened a gym, I would call it Lion's Den. And it was kind of the original thought process was from that movie and my love of that scene. But that then needed to expand a little bit. So as we were working on the name, I wanted Lion to actually like stand for something. So it stands for, the L is learn, the I is integrate, the O is optimize, and the N is nurture. And so the idea there, right, is that we're going, the learn is to kind of, for us, a lot of people that come in here need to like, they're coming in and we're going to ask them to really rethink the way that they train or think about, quote unquote exercise, right? Or physical output. So there's a learn aspect there where we're going to kind of challenge them to, you're not just going to come in here and we're just going to throw you into some crazy workout, right? So there's this learn, then there's this integrate standpoint or aspect, which is how these things that you're learning start to apply to everyday life, right? Beyond just your hour that you're in here with us, but how does it apply to whatever sport or activity you may be training for? The optimize, right, is then working on optimizing whether the effort is more towards a specific sport, like i.e. for me, running, right, or maybe basketball, volleyball, or whatever, or skiing, optimizing it around the specific event that you're training for. And then nurture is kind of that long-term perspective, right, of like nurturing this to be something that is your lifetime, right? So not just something that you abandon after you decide to no longer work here, or you work out here, or you move, or whatever it might be, right? So that was kind of how then Lion kind of, we kind of came up with the meaning around that. And then strength, mobility, performance. We were actually, like when we were getting ready to open, I was like, man, just like Lion's Den makes sense. Should I change the name? Blah, blah, blah. At the time, I had no idea too that there was an adult entertainment or in the Midwest, apparently there's a big Lion's Den that's like,
it's not a gym, let me tell you that.
Not a gym, adult entertainment store. So ironically at the time, and I obviously should have maybe done some more Googling, but I didn't. So, I was thinking about what could fit around it that would signal like Lion's Den is a gym, right? Instead of just calling it Lion's Den Gym. And my mom was actually like, well, what are you about? What is the gym about, right? And I was like, well, strength and, and so we came up with strength, mobility, performance. So we're Lion's Den SMP. And so that's kind of where strength, mobility, performance came from. And then, I don't know, maybe like a month after we were opened, I remember one of my clients was on a road trip and they sent me a picture of a billboard from the adult entertainment Lion's Den store. And I don't know where they were at, but I got a good laugh out of that. So I've definitely that's been brought up to me numerous times.
somewhere in the middle of America, probably.
Yes.
If I had to guess.
Yeah,
well, I mean, and I think I was already here working inside the gym with Physio Room with you guys when I found out about what Lion stood for. And when I found out that LION stood for learn, integrate, optimize, and nurture, I liked it even better because I already kind of liked the name. And what I sort of thought before I learned about what the acronym stood for was like, well, yeah, I hear Tristan talk about like, he's not just trying to get people in here and, have them come to the gym and have as many members as he can have and, get them individually stronger and more mobile. You're trying to build a community with your gym and make sure that the people who come here feel like they're part of, like lions travel in a pride type of a thing, they're in a pack. So that's what I thought was like the meaning behind it, because that's a topic I heard you talk about. And then I was like, oh, it stands for something. And then I liked it even more. And I was like, wow, this is great.
And our newsletter is called The Pride, and that is, very much the community aspect is certainly something that we are, obviously focused on and wanting really an environment that is welcoming to anybody at any age and any kind of point of their physical fitness journey. So that's absolutely a huge part of what we
and you see that here inside the facility. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but I mean, I've seen people here that are probably 6 years old, 7 years old, doing classes all the way up to probably 80 something years old. I mean, so you see people here across an entire spectrum of life. And I know that's something you talk about a lot is, maybe people are training for a particular activity, but I know at Physio Room, we talk about, we specialize in working with athletes. Well, to us, the definition athlete means anyone with a body who moves. Well, that's mostly everybody. You're an athlete at something. And, you're talking about helping people function and train for a lifetime, not just for a part of their life. So speaking of the training here in the gym, because I know that you wouldn't add just like any trainer or coach to your team, because you're trying to create a community here of people who believe in what we're talking about, what you're talking about building. So how would you describe the gym? Like, if someone was looking for a place to train, what type of a facility is this? Is this, some people will ask me, is this a CrossFit gym, or is this like an Orange Theory class, or how would you describe it, being the one who came up with the idea?
Yeah. I mean, I always, I think it does, when you walk in, it definitely, I think from a look standpoint, has similarities to a CrossFit gym. And I think we certainly take a lot of inspiration from some of the things that are done in CrossFit, but it's not a CrossFit gym. We have a mix of personal training and kind of small group training that is our class membership. So our classes are capped and maintained at a relatively small number so that the coaching stays at a high level. Personal training is a lot of what we do here as a whole. And so there is a relatively limited class schedule in comparison to a lot of gyms that offer classes, because we do a lot of personal training. But we want to have the classes as a way to get people in here that, where personal training might be slightly, maybe too much of a financial barrier, that they can still get in and work with our coaches and kind of get exposed to our approach in a way that's not quite the same financial commitment. So, so we offer both classes, personal training, and then we have some of the kind of youth programs that we offer as well, which are fantastic. And they kind of center around certain age groups and sports and things like that. So, there's some variety there. I think how I would describe it is that we are, as I think I could probably said a little bit already earlier, but just we're very movement focused, meaning that there's going to be kind of a learning curve to a certain degree around trying to improve movement quality. Now, that doesn't mean when somebody comes in, somebody comes in, they're going to go through an assessment session. It doesn't mean that they can't take a class until they can do X thing. It just means that with that assessment session, we're going to point out things that we're going to want them to think about and work on. And their coach of the class is going to be pointing those things out to them as they're working through those things. Obviously, if they're working as a personal training client, then they're going to be working very closely on those things with with whoever their coach is. And then we're going to challenge the quality of that movement function through various ways, and that's part of building overall strength and overall fitness, right? So I think kind of using movement as our kind of foundational piece of improving overall quality, making sure people are moving through the greatest ranges of motion available to them while trying to access further range of motion in a safe way, and then making sure that this is done in a pain-free manner, and then create more strength. And and then it's the layering on of how do we train it, right? So so there's a lot of variety there, but our approach generally is to have some sort of major strength piece that is going to be more kind of load based as far as the challenge. And then we'll start knitting different movement pieces together, which will bring in some more conditioning elements. And then we'll generally finish with a more kind of focused conditioning piece that's less technically demanding, where people can just work super hard. Our goal is really to try to balance things where we're really providing high quality training, but not necessarily trying to bog people down into not exercising, right? Like, or into overthinking. So it's a little bit of a fine line, but I think we do a pretty good job.
Yeah. I mean, and I've spent, fitness has always been a part of my life, mostly in like team sport sort of settings, from an early age with, I played pretty much any activity that you can think of, typically ones that involve the ball, football being the major one, and then track starting in middle school. But I've been into a lot of different gyms in my life, whether that be on campus at school or various places that I've lived. And I think one of the things that meshes well with what you just said, and then our business at Physio Room, is you essentially said you care more about quality versus quantity, and improving the quality of the movement of the people that come in the gym. And then one thing that was unique to me to see with your, not just your personal training clients, but also people who are coming in here and participating in classes, is they don't participate in class until they've done a movement assessment. And I've never seen that happen at another gym that I've been to that offers classes. Is there's only always been just like a brief introduction prior to the class where they're like, show up 10-15 minutes beforehand, tell me if you had any major injuries so that the coach knows. But what you guys do is you take them through an assessment, and then the information that comes out of that assessment is relayed to the coach that's going to coach the class, so that they know what that person's history has been, and they can modify on the fly the workout if necessary based on what that assessment revealed. And I think that's one of like the biggest quality pieces that I notice here that's unique to this facility compared to any other one that I've ever seen. So
well, I appreciate that. And I think, that's one of the things, our assessments, 100% complimentary. So it's, free of charge when people come in. We want people just to get kind of exposed to our thought process around movement, and then run them through our assessment. And really the goal there, is to just, as you kind of said, just kind of point things out to them, that could potentially be problematic. Our movement assessment, all of our coaches are actually certified, back to Kelly Starrett, certified in the Ready State 101 certification. Every coach has, many or numerous have the 102 certification. So, kind of the movement and mobility specialist certification that the Ready State offers. And so, again, we take a lot of what we've learned from that and then other sources as well, but that kind of builds our, that's kind of the backbone of our movement approach. And then, we, as and this would be another rabbit hole we don't probably necessarily need to dive down, but we get, we love getting people thinking about kind of their foot, and getting people out of conventional footwear, and shoes is a huge goal of ours. That's probably maybe one of our kind of big community pieces is I just think traditional shoes screw people up. So I'm trying to, trying to one person at a time, get them into something minimal and get their feet turned back on, and realize that that plays a big role in a lot of, kind of musculoskeletal stuff that could be happening upstream that they don't ever think about. Oh, maybe my foot's playing a huge role in why my knee hurts or my hip hurts or my back hurts. Right. So it's like, if we can start shining a light on some of those things, then that's what we like to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're both sitting here wearing shoes by Vivo Barefoot. And I remember you were the person that got me into those types of shoes, which was interesting because I first started to move towards this like barefoot, less support type of footwear back in 2015. And then quite frankly, for no other reason than looks and aesthetics, I moved back away from that to get into some other shoes that I thought looked really cool, despite the fact that these aren't quite as comfortable on my feet, but they look cool, so I'm going to keep wearing them. But yeah, what I think is we should have another episode where that is basically the topic.
I would love it.
And we could probably talk for an hour on that. But now you didn't necessarily know, I want to sort of future cast here just a little bit. And, we kind of run this show without a very tight script because we just want to see where the conversation takes us. But what I want to ask you is, Lions Den started 4 years ago. You've been in this space where you're occupying now for 2 years. So you basically spent 2 years in one space, 2 years in another space. What does the future hold for Lions Den? Like, do you have an idea of where you want to see Lions Den go, or like what the vision is of the gym? What is that?
Yeah, for sure. I think first and foremost, obviously, just the continued growth of our membership and clientele that come in here is obviously a goal. That's always going to be a goal for, I think, a gym facility. We have a great team of coaches here. A goal for me as the owner of the facility is to try to give them as much exposure as possible, because I want them, as busy as they want to be, essentially. So that for me is super important, something that I think a lot about. and we spend time working on. And then I think as far as what the space is and what it offers, I think it's a big goal of mine is an expansion of our classes. So that's one aspect and something that we want to look into this year, really. And then the other thing is getting more into kind of whole life services. So I think, physio rooms here, and we didn't really touch on this in the beginning, but or earlier in the conversation, but originally when I left Greenwood to open Lions Den, my original kind of vision was that we would have a physical therapist that would be also a coach of Lions Den, was my original kind of thought process. So we would have physical therapy work hand in hand. And again, we'll kind of spare the deep rabbit hole here, but kind of my thought process was that these things worked hand in hand, right? And I know you obviously agree with that. And we do work hand in hand with so many people in here, which is fantastic. But the original goal was Lions Den would have a physical therapy component kind of built into it. That never happened in our first space because we had a really small space and it just wasn't feasible. We actually at one point had a physical therapist that came over with us that it didn't work out, and he's still an awesome guy and physical therapist somewhere else now.
Yeah.
But and then when I met Chris, the opportunity kind of presented itself with Physio Room, and because we had such a great alignment on our thought process. And then obviously meeting you was, just made it even more, kind of cemented that even more for me, right? It just made total sense to just, instead of Lions Den trying to figure out its physical therapy component, to kind of outsource that to Physio Room, a place that we believe in 100%. And so that was kind of that initial expansion of what was the original idea, right?
Sure.
Of having a little bit more than just training and classes, but having that physical therapy component. Physio Room essentially serves as that within the facility now, which is fantastic. And I think the goal then from here is to kind of expand some of our nutritional services would be first and foremost. And we've actually got somebody who's been with us in limited capacity over the last year and a half. But we are really planning this year to launch her in a much more kind of solidified way with the group, and offer a more kind of structured service around nutritional therapy and getting people to kind of rework or rethink the way that they approach their nutrition. So that's kind of the next big thing for us. And then, we've got some other ideas, but I don't like to talk too much about them unless I'm a little bit closer to actually pulling them off. So those are the ones that, those are the ones that right now I know are very much in the works and will happen in the coming year for us.
No, and that's awesome. So it sounds like there are big things brewing, exciting things brewing, getting closer to launching a more solidified nutritional side, a component of things. And that's just awesome. I see nothing but, continued success and big things coming because of the way that you built the foundation of the gym. We see the same people coming in and out of this place on a daily or weekly basis. So obviously the people that are coming here believe in what you're doing, and want to support that. And then they tell their friends and family and everything. So I know you've probably got a client coming up. I've got a client coming up, but I want to make sure that the people who tuned in to listen to this know how that they can get a hold of you guys if they want to find out more about Lions Den SMP. From an online perspective. Where can people reach you guys?
Yeah. So lionsdensmp.com is our website. And you can get a hold of us through the website. And then on social media, we're Lions Den SMP on Instagram. And we try to put out a lot of content on there. We've got some fantastic help around that. And so we've got good stuff going out on a daily basis there. My personal page is not really worth following because it has nothing to do with fitness. So if you're interested in Lions Den, just check us out on Lions Den SMP.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Tristan, for joining the show.
Yep.
Anyone who just heard Tristan tell you the handles there, Lions Den SMP, absolutely go follow these guys. jump on their website, subscribe to their newsletter. It is not going to spam your email inbox. It comes out once a month, and it is nothing but value in that thing. You're going to find absolutely the entire email are things that will directly apply to your life. And yeah, they're putting out great content here at Lions Den SMP. Again, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of The Code. Stay tuned for more and have a great day.